Hello out there, everybody. Skip Healy here from Wohlen, Switzerland, welcoming you to episode 16 of the increasingly popular Empty Pockets podcast with Skip Healy. Today we're going to feature part 2 of my interview with my buddy and outstanding uilleann piper, pipe maker, whistle player, singer, mandolin player, composer, arranger, you name it, he does it. Tim Britton, originally from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I first met Tim, and for the last 35, 40 years or so, living out in beautiful Iowa. I hope you enjoy part 2 of the podcast. If you do, please help me out a little bit and subscribe to the podcast. Doesn't cost you anything. You won't be getting any notices from anybody else. Just helping me build towards the nearly impossible 500 subscribers I am so desperately searching for. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the episode, and here we go. Barkeep, a man could die of thirst in this pub. Somebody buy me a pint, please.
Anyway, there was a bunch of people, and Mick Maloney showed up, moved to Philadelphia to study with Kenny Goldstein at the University of Pennsylvania folklore department. And he was already kind of established, progressive traditional singer and player, tenor, banjo, guitar, and voice. And of course, you probably know that he passed on unexpectedly, I guess 3 years ago now.
Yes.
Something like that, almost to the day. That was a big shock because Mick ended up being not only, he was a great performer, but he was extremely proactive in promoting Irish music and developing venues for it, both recorded and festivals. And he was ended up being a primary consultant for some of the bigger Irish festivals in the country, like Milwaukee Irish Fest and the Irish Festival in Philadelphia, which I think was the first one of its kind at the instigation of Mick. I think it started in 74 or 5. I don't remember which, but I have cassette tapes that my father recorded all the proceedings at these things. Wow. So I have them all. So really interesting stuff. Back in the day, most of the people at that festival, were not professionals. They were great musicians, but they, being a professional Irish musician was not a thing.
Yeah.
It was just starting to get, to be a possibility through the hard work of Mick. And he recorded a lot of people, a lot of us. He basically created the careers for a whole generation of, probably a couple, at least 2 or 3 generations of Irish musicians, including the older musicians who were not professionals, as such, but they started, playing gigs and touring with Greenfields of America, notably, which is a pickup band with that Mick led that got a lot of us together around, especially the East Coast and Chicago. We didn't really pick up on the West Coast musicians so much, but it, until he died, it was still an active band from the late 70s on, and he ended up getting grants from the NEA for different initiatives like Greenfields, and also this wonderful concert where he noticed a very interesting thing where the immigrants, you have these immigrant players who are older and maybe in their 50s or sometimes older, and who come over in the 40s maybe or 50s or even earlier, and as opposed to the ones who maybe come earlier and were gone now, like Michael Coleman or somebody like that, Lauterburn. Anyway, you notice that the sons of these immigrants were too cool for school to pick up
Yep.
Irish music,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the daughters didn't have that mentality. So there was this whole crop of Irish American girls, teenagers, who got really good at Irish music and came up in the Irish communities, especially in New York City and New Jersey, around that area. So he got a grant to create a concert called Fathers and Daughters,
Yep.
which was really cool. And I think there's a record of that.
There's a greenlit record that came out
Yeah.
at the same time that my first one, Empty Pockets, came out, that had Joni Madden and her
Right.
dad and
Yep.
Mickey Rafferty and yeah, all those guys.
Yep.
When you were talking before about your background, that you initially learned a lot of your music off records. That's the
Yeah.
exact same way I started, because there was like nobody around me that I knew of
Yeah.
in Rhode Island or Connecticut, where I was living, uh, playing the music. So I
Yeah.
mean, the first couple hundred tunes I ever learned was, well, buying every album that I could find and burning out about 30 sets of cost headphones,
Yeah.
'cause I didn't want everybody else listening to this crazy stuff, and
Yeah.
bags of you know what, and
Yeah.
blowing on the flute at 3 o'clock in the morning. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how I got going. And then that's how I, found out about Mike Copeland eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we hooked up from there.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool stuff. Interestingly, even though I had access, somewhat qualified access to Tom Standevan, um, I didn't learn a lot of technique from him. He was not, he was just an unusual person to deal with, and he wasn't as the technical part of it. He was, showed me a few things, but mostly it was an attitudinal thing that I learned from him, and learned by listening to him, because he had a really unusual style that was extremely emotive. It was like nothing you've ever heard,
Mm-hmm.
on the pipes and the flute, and his air playing was like from another planet. He was really he really instilled this like sense of wonder about this bottomless well of almost like spiritual content that the music sort of was a venue for. So that was, and he also would have things to say about, like, somebody who would be coming, you started to see these Irish musicians coming over from Ireland and performing, and like on the first Cultist tour. They would all play at the Philadelphia Irish Center when they came through, and different things like that. And there would be somebody, he would invariably make some comment about how they were, whoever it was that we happened to be listening to was, they were good, but they were very good technically maybe, but they weren't getting at the real guts of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And obviously a debatable point, but he was so again passionate about what was being lost,
Mm-hmm.
potentially, what he
Mm-hmm.
felt was being lost. Certainly the language is an example that it's certainly been revived in some ways, but as a primary language, it's a hard sell. So in any case, he was, my sense of it was that he was sort of in perennial mourning for this this age that was passing, and what he was seeing happen to what he felt was very precious. So so that was, he was very vocal about this kind of thing, and so and sort of talking to me, out the side of his mouth, like, this,
Mm-hmm.
we're watching this concert of these great players. That certainly made an impression.
Yeah.
And as well as his playing, which of course embodied this passion and this kind of often eerie evocativeness. It was really, really. So I wish I had more recordings of him, because some of the stuff he did was just.
Well, just from your comments about his playing and his style, and from what I know about your playing and your style, I would say you listened very closely and learned a lot about what he meant about
Yes.
music, not necessarily how he played, but
Yeah.
as everyone heard just a few minutes ago, your playing of the Wounded Hussar is no pun intended for you here, but it's just transcendental.
Uh,
You are in another place when you're
yeah.
playing these two. I mean, you're so deep inside the tune when you're playing it, you've left the room at that point, and we're hearing the result of that. It's just uh, there are a lot of great pipers. I mean, Jerry O'Sullivan, I'm going to have on in September.
Hmm.
Another wonderful player, very different style from you, but
Yeah.
to me, you're the best two American-born pipers I've certainly ever heard. Very different styles. You know all the tunes, and you have your own treatments of them. I mean, especially your playing. I'm known to bend the tunes around a
Right.
little bit when I play.
Hmm.
But to me, I always talk with my students is you have to learn to do the kind of stuff that I do or the kind of way you bend the tunes around. You have to know what the tradition is. You have to know
Yeah.
how to play it correctly before you can, express yourself, so to say, with your playing of the tunes. A big impactful thing for me was meeting Matt Malloy. I'm not going to tell the story of the first time I met him, at least not until he passes away,
I
because
remember
it's.
it.
Oh, okay.
I was starting to smile as you were saying that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well,
Shall I
so
tell?
so he so he heard me playing kind of in my style, and then when I started playing with him, I started playing, being a Matt Malloy clone,
Right.
and he just looked at me. He said, you do a great job of sounding like me, but I'm not dead yet. Why don't you work? Why don't you work on sounding like you? Because you're a
Uh-huh.
Yank and you have all these American influences and you have your
Uh-huh.
fife playing stuff.
Yeah.
Why don't you incorporate that into your style and do your
Hmm.
own damn thing? And I'll worry about this end and you take care of the other end, and we're gonna have a lot of stuff covered in between.
Yeah.
Which one of the that was like unlocking the door for me, a
Cool.
little
Well,
bit.
nice
And
you
that
got that
was at the end
encouragement.
of that famous night, by the way, too.
Oh,
So
cool. Good. Nice. Nice. It turned out okay. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, of course, the other side of it is that you learn so much by emulating to a T, the best
oh,
players. And of course,
absolutely,
Matt
yeah.
Malloy was, he was sort of preeminent at that time in, his particular style. And so, of course, why not do that? But then to not stop there,
Right.
which you probably wouldn't have done anyway. But I think it's worth, especially once you've kind of accomplished that, then it's time to encourage you to maybe move on. But I don't think you were certainly. I don't think you were remiss in copying him. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And then I just took it further. In fact, it's interesting talking about errors and learning from recordings and all that. What I started with errors are so weird. I mean, they're the problem with errors, the challenge of errors is that with a jig or reel, it's a very nuts and bolts. There's a level of it that's extremely straightforward, and you can certainly develop that more and more. But with errors, that is mostly missing.
Yes.
The only thing you really have to latch onto is somebody's particular rendition.
Yes.
And so I would do that. I would learn, I was like, hear this, Seamus Ennis doing this, the Wounded Hussar, which is like a perfect example of in the direction that I was describing Tom Stan Evans playing, it's like, whoa, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
There's something is going on there, and it's deep and beautiful, and it makes me feel all kinds of things that I'd never felt before. And wow, and I want to do that. So, so I would learn these things. Again, it was easier to learn the jigs and the reels and the hornpipes or whatever, but the dance tunes. But the airs were just this thing. I would just copy them. I just like carbon copy them as much as I could, and I got pretty good at it. But it was still different than what it would have been like if I was understanding where the tune was coming from instead of just simply imprinting. And obviously, learning, and then, when you learn from different people, you get, maybe the same tune, you hear it different ways. That can give you some insight into what's behind that stuff. But as much as there's a lot that can be learned by imprinting, there's another level to it. Like if you hear a singer singing it, these airs are mostly songs. So, and oftentimes when you hear it sung, even by like Seamus Ennis, I heard him do Bandu and Glana, the Dark Woman of the Glen, and also I heard him sing it, but I also heard him play it, and that was when I learned his playing of it before I heard him sing it. And when you hear him sing it, it's kind of different than what he does when he's playing it, or did. And so it's like trying to wrap my head around that. Why is it different? All these things. But one of the interesting things that happened for me was that, I used to sit up in my bedroom and, I'd sit in my rocking chair and play the whistle for, hours and hours, and people would like, and the rest of my family, like, when is he going to stop kind of thing. But, or I'd be down in the basement scrutinizing the recordings and, recording them on reel to reel and then playing them back at half speed and stuff like that. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, so at this point, I was at the point where I was starting to play the uilleann pipes, as opposed to, it took me a while to get a set because Tom was kind of like, I had really long hair. I looked like some little hippie kid or something, and he was not sure I was like worthy of it. Yeah. Of actually, he could have loaned me a set of pipes, that day. That would have been a radical thing to do. You don't, usually send somebody off with a set of pipes, a valuable instrument. But he did, give me a whistle. But he took his time in fact, he never actually told me where I could get a set. Of course, back then there was almost nobody playing them, and I think there was 3 living makers, all in Ireland, and Dan Dowd, Matt Kiernan, and what's his name in Cork?
Eugene Lamb, or
no, Eugene came along later.
Okay.
He was just again, a lot happened in the 70s, but in 72. There was almost nobody playing. There was maybe 36 people in the world playing pipes, and maybe a dozen in North America and a couple dozen in Ireland. It might be pushed, an exaggeration, but it's not very
not far off.
Yeah, maybe 4 dozen. But anyway, what was I saying? I ran into Michael Copeland at a square dance that was being held in a public at the Chestnut Hill train station, which was a couple miles from my house on the edge of Philly. And and this guy walks up and he sees I've got like a backpack on and the top of my chanter is sticking out of the back of it because I've got my practice set in this thing. So I just like carried it around with me all the time and along with my whistle. And so he comes up to me and, I mentioned earlier that, he was making primitive bagpipes and fifes at the time. And Michael at the time, you probably never knew him in this phase, but he had this long beard. He always wore a handkerchief over his head and had wire rim glasses, rarely wore shoes, and always had his dog Zeke with him.
All right.
And so we got to be best friends. And he was about 30 at the time, and I was like 13 or something. And so we would talk on the phone for hours until my father made me get off the phone. And back then there was no call waiting or answering machines or
Yeah, right.
And I'd go visit him. He was living in West Philly at the time in Powelton Village, and eventually I learned how to make instruments from him. What you actually typically start out on, if you're interested in learning the pipes, is this here. It's called a penny whistle, and thankfully it's a lot easier to play. There are no reeds in it, and it's also a lot cheaper. They used to call them penny whistles, and of course they used to cost a penny. That was when a penny was probably worth about $20 now, which is about what they cost nowadays. So this is a nice one. This costs a bit more than $20. This was made by my good old friend Michael Copeland, and maybe he'll have a chance to watch this video. Maybe he's watching it right now. He lives outside of Philadelphia. Wonderful soul and a fantastic instrument maker and musician. So I'm going to play a little tune. I'm not sure I remember the name of this. In fact, I'm quite sure that I don't at this moment. But I'm going to play it anyway. I learned it from the playing of a great flute player, whistle player, and singer named Cahill McConnell, who's from Fermanagh, which is actually where my family is from. If you go far enough back to the mid-19th century. And he's a wonderful person and a fabulous musician. And this kind of tune, I always think of him not only because I learned it from him, but it kind of reminds me of him. It's got a very childlike quality to it that I like a lot.
How about firing up that lovely set of various parts from here and there? A couple of reels or something for us.
Sure. Okay. Let's see.
awesome. There is just such a swing and bounce in your playing, brother. I mean, that's just something I've always loved about your playing. The
Thank
first
you.
tune was the one that shakes the barley, wasn't it?
Yep.
That's
I,
my daughter Abigail's 10 years old, and she's learning the Irish fiddle
oh,
at the
cool.
moment, and that's the tune she's working on at this point. So,
Excellent. Well, it's a great tune. There's there's so many tunes out there.
oh God,
As you well know, it's just sort of like endless, it seems. And I think of myself as knowing, or at least I used to think of myself as being, knowing a lot of tunes. Now it's like you go to a session, first of all, there's people, it's like I used to be that kid who was like, people would look at, wondering what was going on there. It's like there's so many good players out anymore. You were saying, one of the, Jerry and I being the two, top American-born pipers. It's like, no, we used to be, but there's
of our generation. Then I'll
yes,
that.
there you go. There's all
I
these
keep
other
forgetting
people.
we're on the losing
Yeah,
side of 50 at this point.
exactly. So there's some great players, and of course, all these, whether pipers or not, these people, they start where we left off. It's like
Yeah.
whoever is. I mean, not that we left off anything yet, but we're heading towards the door at some point here.
Hmm.
But the repertoire has expanded. That what would be considered normal session fodder. I don't know how many thousands of tunes are, would be relatively commonly known by any, really accomplished player. And I know Mick Maloney, I think at one point said he thought there was 30,000 tunes in the Irish repertoire.
Hmm.
I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's some indication that, I know, the people who tend to know a lot of tunes, definitely several thousand,
Oh yeah,
easily. And
very easily. Yeah.
and then there's more all the time, and people learning the latest, cool things that are people composing. I've composed, some tunes, and
I
there's
recorded one of them.
I yeah, I forgot about
Stripies.
that. Yeah, that's cool. That's Stripey. Stripey's used to be a kid. He's he's an adult now, who is the son of a friend of mine, couple of friends of mine, and
I wasn't sure where that was going for a second. He was the son of a friend of mine.
son of a bitch. No, no, he's a great guy, and he actually took whistle lessons for a while from me when he was younger, and is doing interesting things these days. But his name is Luke. His Stripey is, I don't know whether it's his middle name or his first name, but it's like Luke Stripey Luke Stenger, or Luke Stripey Stenger. And
That's funny. That's my brother's nickname,
Luke or Stripey.
Luke.
Interesting. So anyway, yeah, I haven't played that tune in ages. It's an interesting little tune. There was something I was getting onto, but I'm not sure what it was. Anyway, I guess what do I want to say? I guess I want to just shout out to some of the people that I've played with over the years. I do want to mention, when I was about 14,
Hmm.
I think I met some people. They would come down to this festival that, the Philadelphia Ceilidh Group, traditional Irish music and dance festival, and that I mentioned earlier. And so I was meeting these people. There's a bunch of people coming down from New York. It was like Andy McGann and Patty Reynolds.
Oh, yeah. I played a lot with Patty. He was a character.
Yes, yeah, they
Oh my
certainly
God.
were, and he
He'd
was
poke you with the bow
especially.
if he didn't like what you were doing.
Yeah, there's a great story. Brandon Mulvihill, who
Yeah.
sadly passed recently when
Oh, I
he
didn't
was
know
living.
that.
Yeah, a few, was it like a year or two ago now?
Oh no. Oh.
He moved back to Ireland, and I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, something like that. And I hadn't seen him in ages, but I heard that he passed. And anyway, Brandon, his father, Martin Mulvihill, was one of the people who was teaching this generation of young women that we were talking about with, I never finished that thought about the fathers and daughters. Then Mick did a follow-up concert with just the daughters called Cherish the Ladies.
Right.
They are
and
now
Joni is still touring it.
Yes, one of the top, traditional Irish music bands in the world, and for good reason. Joni is indomitable, among other things, and a great player, of course. But all those people from New York were starting to filter their way down to Philly, and vice versa. I ended up going up to New York. I think I was 14. I met this guy, Rick O'Shea, who came down to that festival, and
one of the greatest names of all time.
Rick O'Shea.
Rick O'Shea.
And Rick was just a sweetheart, and just really appreciated me. And I would stay at his apartment in Brooklyn, and he would take me around to all these sessions. And have me, play with these, mostly adult players. But there were these younger players who were just coming up, like Brian Conway.
Oh, yeah.
And
Tony DeMarco.
He wasn't as young as Brian, but yes. And he was starting to be around. And also, again, more of that generation, a little older than me. Larry McCullough was around. He was out in Pittsburgh at the time. Anyway, there was sort of a cross-pollination between the various Irish communities on the East Coast, and then people started coming over from Chicago. Mick brought in Liz Carroll at one point, and that was, she was really something. It's a real eye-opener, ear opener.
Oh, for sure.
And so all these people ended up mixed in with the older, Irish immigrant people like Charlie and Jack Cohen, and Eugene O'Donnell, of course, and
sure.
Sean McGlynn, and then the older players, and then the younger players like Billy McComiskey, Liz, myself, and dancers as well, Donnie Golden and Eileen, and
Donnie Golden.
Various people. So we all started touring around as a band, and I was probably, I don't know, maybe 17 when I first started doing that. I think it was the second Greenfields of America tour. The first tour had Bill Ox playing pipes, and I might have been a little older by then. I can't remember, maybe 18 or 19. I can't remember. But anyway, it was an absolutely fantastic opportunity between hanging out in New York with Rick and all the other musicians there, and hearing these players and playing with them. The whole Irish Arts Center in which is still around. It's got an amazing newish building that they're in just around the corner from the old one up on the west side, 50th and 10th Avenue. And I made a bunch of friends there with the kind of younger musicians like Jimmy Devine, Chuck O'Donnell, Kathy Whitty.
Oh, yeah.
And
I played lots with Jimmy in Providence.
I know. And Jimmy and I were like inseparable for a while. I would go up, hitchhike up to New York, or take the train up, and eventually I was staying at Jimmy's house, Jimmy's apartment on West 46th, along with a whole bunch of other people from the Irish Arts Center. They were all sort of camped out there. Bill Ox was in that same building, and it was quite a scene. It was just wonderful. So you had the depth and venerability of the older players, like Johnny Cronin was in fine form then, and I already mentioned Andy McGann and Patty Reynolds. They were sort of like the center of the scene in a way, and at least that I was aware of. Anyway, it was like heaven. And I was sort of on the young end of the scale. Most of the people I was playing with were just a little older. And Eileen Ivers ended up coming into it. She was, I think, a couple years younger than me, somewhere in there. And we ended up playing together a little later. And I think she was in Greenfields at one point as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just a fantastic scene that was just really starting to come into its own between having these bands like Planksty and the Bothy Band and the Boys of Loch and Didan, and eventually just, you know, showing us how it was done on that kind of end of the spectrum, and the older players, you know, bringing this much more kind of humble yet nonetheless equally masterful way of approaching the music, less commercialized. And so it's just, you know, and when I went back to Ireland the following year, I was there in 75, I was 14 years old, and then I went back in 76. I spent 3 months there from the day after school ended until the day before it started.
Nice.
And
that's the summer vacation.
Yeah, exactly. And I was 15, and I ended up traveling around with somebody I knew from the States, Jane Kelton, who was
Jeez.
I'm still in touch with Jane. I see her when I go to New York, which I do a lot, even though I'm living out in Iowa. I moved here like 42 years ago, I guess. But I've been going to New York a lot in the last 9 years, again, after kind of a hiatus. I go back just to you know, see my friends and play music, you know, do session gigs, and I'll be going there in a few weeks, and I'll be there on Labor Day in New York.
Oh, nice.
And there for about a week or so. And anyway, just an amazing scene. But I went back to Ireland the second time that following year. I got to see and, you know, hang out and play music with some of the, you know, most significant, you know, older generation icons in Irish music, in Clare, going to Willie Week. And I hung out with Sean Reid, who was sort of the founder of the Pipers Club, and Pre-Brilliant. And he gave me these measurements that he had taken of Liam O'Flynn's chanter, which he had actually ordered from Leo Rowsome and given to Liam to play. So when I got into pipe making, I started kind of extrapolating my design from that. And that
not a bad place to start.
I know, yeah, it was a beautiful instrument, and he let me play his coin set of pipes, and there was various people that were sort of passing me around saying, you need to meet this guy, you need to meet this guy. So I went and visited Peadar Loughlin. I think the first year I went, and then I went again and met up with him, and was visiting him with Jane. And he was saying, if you're going to Dublin, you need to look up Tommy Potts, my good friend, and also what's his name? Blanking out, but John Kelly wanted me to see John Kelly, but also the piper who was would always play at the Four Seasons up the street from John Kelly's shop, Andy Conroy. Talk about a character. Do you know his playing at all?
I think I heard a little bit, but not very deeply. No.
It's utterly unique. It's like nothing you've ever heard. Extremely tight and complicated. He would make a point of doing, like, translating a normal tune into like staccato quintuplets. Like the whole thing was just like completely, you know, ultra tight.
Like the Northumbrian pipes almost.
Much more so.
Even more.
Oh yeah, you never heard anything like it. It was so, he just did it almost for entertainment. I think he would just sort of just to show people something different. And this was at a time when Paddy Keenan was sort of like the hot, you know, dude with the Bothy Band and everything, and he was in the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, way opposite end of it. Yeah.
So, you know, and Davey Spillane as well was similar, you know, the kind of traveler style playing, Johnny Doran, etc. You were asking about my influence earlier. I was talking about Ennis and Clancy, but also Tommy Reck, who would have been a little more closed, and Paddy Maloney. You know, you know, people tend to just associate him with the Chieftains, but as a solo piper, he was
brilliant.
Like, he was amazing.
Yeah.
And
no,
I always thought
vastly underrated. I mean, because
yeah, only because he was so much associated with this gig that he had. But as a piper, he was, at a time when no one else was that virtuosic. They didn't try to play the way he was playing. I don't think most players were not really even aspiring to that level of complexity and sort of flamboyant, expressiveness. But Jesus, what a player!
one of the first gigs that Matt Malloy did with the Chieftains when he joined the band, well, if not the first one, was at Woolsey Hall at Yale University. And I was standing in the waiting area, actually with my friend John Chalia that I talked about earlier, and a couple of other friends of ours, and they were doing the sound check. And the flute player came up, and I was expecting Mick Tudbrady, the old flute.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And all of a sudden, Matt Malloy fires up. And I just, holy shit, that's got to be Matt Malloy. And their road manager was standing like 10 feet away from me. And he just came over and said, that's Matt Malloy's playing through closed doors like this. I said, well, I play the flute a little bit, and I've really listened to him a lot. And he said, well, come on backstage after the show and come say hello to everybody. I said, oh, Jesus Christ, this would be great. Yeah, sure. And so Paddy Maloney was one of the first guys that I spoke. We went back to the dressing room, and Paddy had the pipes out in the box. And I was looking at him, and he saw me looking at him, so he came walking over, and he says, well, do you know what you're looking at? I said, well, yeah, kind of, I fool around with the pipes a little bit. And he handed me the chanter. And so I took it, and I held on to the chanter, and he looked at me and says, oh, bless you, you're holding it the right way anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, he was a friendly enough guy.
I
didn't ever get to know him very well, but I met him on several occasions, and he lived when I was in Dublin on that trip in 1976. I was staying in a flat in not far from where Paddy was living in Rathmines, and so I run into him at the store sometimes. I was like, "Oh, Paddy Maloney, I know you."
I mean, as trite as it sounds, he was a wonderful ambassador for the music.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, he presented the band in such a great way. He had such a great, some people thought a little hokey stage presence, but you have to remember largely the audiences that they were playing.
Exactly.
I mean, he sold the music in such a nice way. I remember, I think it might have been at the Woolsey Hall concert. They were going to play Old Hag at the Churn. And so he says, we're going to play this tune, Old Hag at the Churn. And they're getting ready to start, and he's looking around doing everybody ready. And then he just stops and he says, that's the thing about the Irish. We're the only people in the world that can call a woman an old hag in an endearing sort of way.
Jesus. Yeah. Well, it's a translation from the Irish. So it sort of means, old woman, or, the hag is sort of, one way to translate it. But anyway, there's how it is. There's about a dozen or so tunes that are named after the hag this, the hag that, the hag at the churn, the hag and the hag with the money.
She was a very busy woman.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, well,
Timmy, listen, I've taken up a huge amount of your time here, which we really, really appreciate. Do you have one more set of tunes you can send us off with?
Sure. I can play that tune we were just talking about, maybe.
Sure.
That one is, let's see, I sometimes get them a little confused, but that's it, isn't it? No, that's Old Hag. You've killed me.
That's Old Hag. Yeah, no.
What is the Hag at the Churn? Is that?
Nope, that's not it either. What the fuck? I was just thinking of it until you said I can't think of how it goes.
I got the churn. Didn't, is it? No. Yeah. Okay, so I'll play a set of tunes with that as the last one. Or maybe, I don't know, we'll think about it. Yeah. These are two tunes, two more, piping tunes, great piping jigs. The the pipe on the hob and the other pipe on the hob. And they're very different tunes with the same name. And then I'll try going into that if I can get all this straight.
Great, man. Love it, Timmy.
Great tunes.
Great tunes. You know, you were talking about learning all this music from all the older players. And when I was living in Ireland, you know, I bought a house over there years ago and was living in South Tipperary for a long time. And I made the acquaintance of this man called Phil Malachny, who I talk a lot about in my videos. I learned a huge amount of music from him, a lot about life from him, and he always had a great thing that he used to say. I'd hear people ask him, because he knew all the old tunes, you know, just wonderful old music. And people would come up to him and they'd say, Phil, what's your favorite tune? And he'd say, the one I don't know yet.
Nice.
Great answer. Yeah. Well, Timmy, you've played some great tunes for us. There's a lot of clips available for you about you on YouTube. We're going to dig up a few of those and add those into this video. Hear you playing with a few people here and there. But thank you for 40 or so years of friendship. We haven't seen each other every week. It's been a while, as we said at the beginning of the show. But
yeah.
Man, I think about the you and me playing with Gerald Trimble
Hmm.
and just some of the things we've done over the years, especially as I say, flying around Philadelphia in your old Carmen Ghia once
Yep.
upon a time. That was
Yep. Yeah, I remember.
that was fun, man. That was fun. But everybody, that's the guy right there, Timmy Britton. Used to be one of the best pipers in America. But
There you
apparently,
go.
I'm kind of stuck on an island over here in Switzerland, so I'm not hearing a lot of the young talent anymore. I'm not in the sessions the
Mm.
way I used to be. So if you say
Yeah.
there's a lot of great talent out there, man, I can't wait to hear some of these players.
Well, there are some beautiful players out there, that's for sure. Thinking of like Joey Abarta, is one of the better players. He's amazing facility, and originally from LA. That's where I met him. And he was this young pup driving me around while I was out there for a weekend and grilling me for everything I could tell him about pipes, and ended up becoming really one of the more amazing piping technicians out there. He's just meaning like technically he's really makes it look easy, as they said, as they
Yeah.
say. But and there's a few others as well on that of that ilk around anymore. Um, but I think Joey's still living up in Boston, if he hasn't moved yet. Kieran O'Hara is another one. There's probably about a half a dozen people that I don't know whether you'd heard of them or not, but that are really wonderful players and all very unique. Joey kind of likes to bring out some of the early the styles of some of the people who were playing on wax cylinders and 78s
Oh yeah.
back in the day. He was one of the few people who was really who were really putting that forward. Um, anyway,
Well, that wheel
really,
keeps turning, Timmy. Once upon a
yeah,
time, we were the young pups running around pulling on everybody's coattails, and
exactly.
now there's two or three people following us graybeards around. So,
Indeed. Well, it's great to see you. I don't know when I'll see you in person, but I hope to make it over to Europe at some point, and we'll stay in touch more than we have.
yeah, we definitely will. I mean, if you can get over here, I can hook a couple of things up with us, and you got a place to stay anytime you're in the neighborhood. So,
Cool. Excellent.
let me know. So, everybody, that is my buddy right there, Tim Britton. Thanks a lot, Timmy.
Thank you. Take care
Cheers,
now.
man.